Iran is now on the verge of a nuclear bomb. Obama is now trying to cut a deal with them. It's still in progress. It would, from what we know, basically keep Iran's nuclear infrastructure intact. It would enable them to keep some of these underground nuclear facilities like in Fordo operating. Do you believe Bibi Netanyahu is convinced that Israel is facing a potential second Holocaust? What do you make of this deal, and what would you do if you were president?
Well, the deal's a catastrophe. It legitimizes Iran's ability to continue to enrich uranium, which is the long pole in the tent in any nuclear proliferator's playbook. You can argue about 6,000 centrifuges, 5,000 centrifuges. They shouldn't have one centrifuge. I wouldn't trust that regime with a spare life. Ironically, 12 years ago when this all started, people say, gee, we need to let negotiations take place, maybe we can get a diplomatic solution. You know, we've been negotiating with Iran through the Europeans for 12 years. How long does it take them to prove they've got a peaceful nuclear program? If they haven't done it in 12 years, how many more years is it going to take? They're not going to get chit-chatted out of their nuclear weapons capability. They've been after it for 30 years. They want it. They're going to have it. They're determined to do it unless somebody stops them. You can see from the conflicting statements by Obama administration officials and people from Tehran in the days since the announcement on April the 2nd about the deal. They're just fundamental disagreements about what the deal is. At this point, there's no meeting of the minds. Now, they may get to it because the president's going to make whatever concessions he needs to make to reach agreement, but right now they're in disagreement on fundamental points. The president would have people believe that anybody who opposes his deal is a warmonger, and yet we've seen op-eds by George Shultz and Henry Kissinger. There's just an op-ed the other day by Jim Baker, 3 Republican secretaries of state who are all characterized over the years as moderates, and they just ripped this deal to pieces. I talked to Secretary Shultz the other day, in fact, to congratulate him on the op-ed. We were talking about Iran. He paid me, if I could say, a very nice compliment. He said, geez, I've watched you on Fox on this Iran deal. You're right on target. He said, you know, people say, oh, but Bolton is so conservative. And I say, that's not conservative. That's just common sense. Going to be able to verify this deal. We don't know where Iran might have hidden uranium enrichment facilities that we don't know about. They may be in North Korea. I mean, we've known for a long time North Korea and Iran cooperate on ballistic missiles. Perfectly reasonable that they should. They both use the same Soviet-era Scud missile technology as the basis for their work. This isn't to launch weather satellites, it's to deliver nuclear warheads. I was told about 10 years ago, North Korea has more underground structures than the United States. Why? Because they've learned since the Korean War, the way to avoid detection is to bury what they're doing. So we have next to no good intelligence about what's happening inside North Korea. And it's perfectly plausible that North Korea and Iran are cooperating. The IAEA, look, I'm a supporter of the International Atomic Energy Agency, but it's a very limited operation. It's not an espionage agency. The people there are very dedicated about proliferation, but they rely on information we and Israel and the United Kingdom and others give them. If we can't find hidden facilities, the IAEA isn't going to find hidden facilities. So I think this deal simply paves the road for Iran to get nuclear weapons. They're not in a hurry to build one weapon. They're building a very broad and deep nuclear infrastructure. When they decide to weaponize, they're going to build scores or hundreds of nuclear weapons. And that's why Israel's worried. That's why they fear, as you say, they fear a nuclear holocaust. And it's why Israel, twice before in its history, has struck nuclear weapons programs in the hands of hostile states. Once against Saddam Hussein in 1981, and once against Syria, destroying a reactor there in September of 2007, a reactor that was being built by North Koreans. Now, how do you think they got to Syria? They don't do this for free. North Korea doesn't do anything for free. Somebody paid them to build that reactor. I think it was Iran. They've got the money, they've got the oil resources Syria doesn't have. And why build a reactor in Syria? Why would Iran and North Korea work together to do that? Well, what better place to conduct your illicit nuclear weapons activities than in a place nobody's looking until Israel found it and destroyed it. So I don't know what decision the Israelis will make, but I tell you, just this week, we got an indication of how far apart everybody is on this deal when Vladimir Putin on Monday signed a decree lifting a decision made 5 years ago to withhold a very sophisticated anti-aircraft defense system called the S-300 to sell it to Iran. This system, it's a system of computers and radars and missiles, is believed to be able to defeat any aircraft other than stealth aircraft, which Israel doesn't have. So when this system is deployed and operational, it will frustrate any ability Israel might have to go after the Iranian program. Have you heard the president complain about this? No. Because Putin is doing what Obama wants. Obama doesn't want Israel to defend itself because it'll destroy the deal. Now, we've said, I mean, you can see from this whole discussion, one of the principal and legitimate criticisms of Obama's negotiation style is he just makes one concession after another because he's desperate for a deal. I like to say, I got a parking ticket, I wouldn't ask Obama and Clinton and Kerry to represent me, I'd end up with a life sentence.
That's a good one.
And as we were saying before, you know, one of the principal areas of disagreement is the stated position of the president is the economic sanctions on Iran are not lifted until they perform, until they meet their obligations under the deal. The Ayatollah Khamenei informed us last week or so that that wasn't their understanding. Their understanding was the sanctions are lifted on day one, and then the Iranians perform. Now, these are irreconcilable positions, except for Barack Obama, who yesterday said, well, I'm really not so concerned about when we lift the sanctions. It's just making sure we bring them back into effect after we catch them violating the deal. What are we talking about? I mean, we're going into this knowing they're going to violate the deal and then saying, but we'll put the sanctions back in place. It's not going to happen. They talk about snapback sanctions in the UN Security Council. Are you kidding me? It's not going to happen. So the president, in less than 2 or 3 weeks after this announcement, is already ready to make more concessions. The Iranians know this. We're going to have 3 months of negotiation now until the end of June, and who can predict how many more concessions we're going to make? That's why I wouldn't worry so much about the legislation in Congress. I don't know whether Congress can stop it or not. I rather doubt it. I don't think the Democrats will break from the president on the deal itself. We've got to do everything we can, though, to prevent this deal from happening. And I just think that it will leave Israel, it will leave our Arab friends in the region, it will leave us in grave danger for years into the future. Because once Iran's nuclear program is legitimized, then the decision when they get nuclear weapons is simply a matter of timing. It's entirely in their hands. That's a disaster for America and its friends.